So, burnout is trending. And if that feels strange to say, same. Because for years, it was something people hid. It was whispered about or only admitted after the fact when they'd recovered, right? Just enough to repackage the story and then to start to make it safe to tell. And now, burnout is everywhere. Coaches, creators, thought leaders, everyone using all the right words, right? Nervous system, regulation, dysregulation, somatic safety, trauma aware. And part of me, honestly, is relieved. Because when I started doing this work over a decade ago, it felt like I was speaking a completely different language. I would talk about the whole body, whole life impact of burnout and just be met with complete blank stares, or I'd get the quiet side eye, like, isn't that just for people who can't cope? Aren't you just talking about stress? Right? This is just stress. Or the amount of people that would be like, well, it's just resilience, right? You just need to be more resilient. It was seen as weakness, or worse, it was being dismissed entirely. And I cannot tell you how many times I was told that burnout is not real, or that's not coaching, that's therapy, or this isn't what high performers struggle with. FYI, the term burnout has been in clinical use since the 1970s, but back then it didn't belong in coaching rooms, but it does now. So yeah, there's part of me that's glad that this language is now mainstream, that we're actually talking about nervous system literacy, that we're acknowledging that performance isn't always the goal. But there's another part of me that just completely feels the ick. Because you can feel when something has been reduced to content, right? You feel it in your body. You can feel when language is being used, but not lived. When burnout becomes the topic of a 5-slide carousel, when dysregulation is a trending hook, when the aesthetics get better, but the coaching practice hasn't deepened. And that isn't awareness. That's performance. And what is hard to name is that this used to be something that we held with care. I certainly did, but now it's branding. And I'm not saying that fewer people should talk about it, but I am saying more people should be trained to work with it. Because burnout isn't a vibe. Burnout isn't a buzzword, right? We're not here playing buzzword bingo. It is a physiological collapse. It's not a temporary dip in energy. It is a total fragmentation of capacity, identity, and regulation. And when you start talking about that like it's some kind of brand pillar, or worse, like it's something that a productivity tweak can fix, you totally miss the point. And in that instance, you risk causing harm. So what happens when your client's nervous system can't hold the coaching that you're trained to give? That's the piece no one's saying out loud. But every emotionally intelligent coach I work with is feeling it. Because here's what happens. Your client shows up flat. They will give you all of the right words. They're agreeable, but nothing's landing. Nothing is shifting. And the sessions feel shallow. You can't quite get beneath the surface. And you start asking yourself, is it me? Right? Am I missing something? Is this just resistance? Do I need to frame the questions differently? Do we need to go even deeper? No, it's not you, and it's not resistance. It's the body, the brain, the nervous system saying no. And no one taught you how to hear it, because coaching as it stands still assumes a baseline of capacity. It assumes that the client can think clearly, set goals, make decisions, track progress, and regulate their state. But burnout breaks all of that. Burnout changes how someone relates to time, to goals, to their own self-worth, to their identity, even to trust. And when you coach over that, even with good intentions, even with the best of intentions, you end up reinforcing the exact pressure that put them there in the first place, the toxicity that put them there in the first place, the loss of their sense of self that put them there in the first place. And the problem isn't your coaching, it's what your coaching was built for. Now, my first burnout made me seriously ill. My second almost killed me. And I know with every part of my being that if my coaches back then had been burnout informed in the way that I now train coaches from around the world, I wouldn't have lived with chronic illness for over a decade. I wouldn't have needed major surgery last year. And my sons wouldn't have seen me struggle through all of that. This isn't theory for me. It's not content. It's personal, it's professional, and it's preventable. Now, the world of work has changed dramatically since I started my career, but the coaching hasn't kept up. If anything, coaching has gotten even more focused on performance and even less focused on state and safety. And I want to be clear here, because burnout-informed coaching isn't softer. It's not therapy, and it doesn't mean that we never set goals or move forwards or focus on performance. It just means that we don't start there. We start with state. We start with safety. We start with self. Because if those aren't online, nothing else sticks. Now, you've been trained to start with transformation, but lately something's felt off. Your body knows it, your brain knows it, your intuition knows it, and so does your clients. Depending on which report you read, between 60 and 88% of the workforce is at or on the brink of burnout. And that's most people. And yet most coaching still bypasses that fact entirely, as if goals still make sense in a system that's shut down, as if momentum is the measure of success, even when the body is saying stop. Burnout impacts decision making. It impacts cognitive function, confidence, capacity, even or especially your client's sense of self. And yet, most coaching is still taught like absolutely none of that matters. You can't goal set your way out of a system collapse. You can't think your way out of burnout. So if you have been feeling that shift, like you're saying the right things but missing the depth, if you've noticed the language get louder but the practice get thinner, if you've been quietly wondering whether your work still fits and what's showing up in the room, then you're not behind. You're ahead. And if you want to move beyond buzzwords to the skill, the clarity, the capacity to actually hold your clients when their systems say no, this is the work.